All right, so just to sort of recap, obviously what we're doing is we took two photographs, we printed them out. You're supposed to give each one a certain mood using different colors and different designs, right? So I obviously have two very different pictures here. I have very different backgrounds and I use very different colors, okay? So then what we need to do is we need to cut these into strips so that we can actually physically weave them together. So I don't know if you can see on the back of this one, you can kind of see the actual weave pattern on the paper, right? So it's actually weaved together, okay? So one of these photos is cut into vertical strips that are all 1/2 inch, and the other photo was cut into horizontal strips that are all 1/2 inch, okay? And there's a trick to doing this so that all your pieces don't get mixed up and you have to put them together like a puzzle every day. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I made two new ones, okay? So these are the ones that I made for this example. They're opposite of this other one. I switched the colors around, so this picture now has the other colors and vice versa. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to decide which one we're going to cut vertically and which one we're going to cut horizontally, and it makes no difference. Okay, you just have to decide which one you're going to do. It doesn't matter which one, you just have to choose and stick with it. Okay, because if you cut them both vertically, you're going to have to redo one of your pictures. Okay, one has to be vertical and one has to be horizontal. So I went ahead on this one. I don't know if can you guys see those lines up there? Yeah. I went ahead and did this one vertically. So you can see my photo goes this way. These lines are vertical. But what I did here is I left a strip down here that the lines are not going to be cut all the way off. So that when I cut all these strips, they're still going to be connected down here. Okay, that's super important that you do that so that all these pieces stay in order and that they don't fall apart and you have to put them together like a puzzle every day before you get started, okay? So when you go to cut these, you have to leave a strip like this uncut so that all your pieces are still stuck together just in that one spot. And I'm gonna show you how to do that on this other one, okay? So this one's obviously vertical, okay? This one is going to be the opposite, right? Horizontal. So on this one, everybody's gonna get a strip of this paper. That's exactly 1/2 inch. That way you don't have to do too much measuring. It'll be pretty consistent. I just lined this up on the edge of my paper over here, and I drew that vertical line. Okay, so I'm cutting this one horizontally, so my first line has to be vertical, if that makes any sense to you, because I'm going to keep this side together. So now all I have to do is line up my paper really carefully, and I'm going to hold it really still, and I'm going to very carefully make sure that my pencil doesn't go under that, and draw that line, okay? So this is going to be pretty repetitious here. You're going to just do this really carefully every 1/2 inch. So this paper is 11 inches, so you're going to have to do it 22 times. Actually 21, because the last line will technically be the edge of your paper. Okay, and I'm just going to go through here and make all these marks. Okay. So I started to see my paper move right there, so I need to move my finger down, hold it. A lot of people I've noticed when you're using rulers, for some reason, a lot of people like to put their pencil like this and try to go along the line. And if you do that, your pencil is going to go underneath or it's going to move that, okay? When you're tracing a line, especially when you're using something that's not super rigid like a ruler, this paper will move a little bit. So you want your pencil to be parallel to the line that you're making. And you don't want to press super hard, because the harder you press, the more likely it is that you're going to move that piece of paper, or your pencil is going to accidentally go underneath it. Okay, so always make your pencil parallel to the line that you're tracing, and make sure your fingers are spread out far enough that you're going to hold the paper still everywhere. Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. Hello, good sir. So now when I go to cut this, I'm only going to cut until that line right there. Okay, so I'm going to be super careful. And this part of the process is really, really, really important, that you go slow and you cut on the line. Okay, it's important that your lines are all spaced out evenly and that they're nice and straight, and that when you cut, you take your time and you make sure that those lines are really straight. I'm going to stop right on that last line there, okay? So I'm going to end up with a bunch of strips. They're going to all be connected along this top line, okay? So then when I go to weave, this one will be vertically and this one will be horizontally, and they will be able to weave together that way, right? So essentially what we're going to do is when this one is all cut apart, the vertical one, whichever one you choose to be vertical, we're going to tape this down into the folder that I gave you guys yesterday. You're going to tape along the bottom edge and along the other edge, and then these will all be loose and you can weave through from the bottom working towards the top. And that way all your pieces will be actually stuck into that folder. The only thing that will be loose is this one. And because these are all going to be connected along this side where this strip is, right? All I have to do is I just tear one of them off at a time and weave them through here. That way I don't have a bunch of loose pieces. I only have one piece that's loose at a time. And that way they don't get all mixed up into a pile in your folder. Okay? And that'll make more sense once I cut these all apart and once you see it happening, okay? So I will do that on Monday. I'll show you guys how to start weaving them together. Even if you're not ready to cut them apart today, I still want you to do this. Oops, let's not ruin that. I still want you to get these lines drawn. Okay, so you need to make sure you're leaving a strip on the bottom of your vertical one and on either the left or right side of your horizontal stripes, okay? Okay, and if that doesn't make sense, please raise your hand before you make a mistake. Before you do anything that you think might be wrong, please raise your hand and ask. Just even if you think it's right, but you're not quite sure, please ask, okay? Because once you cut it up, if you did it wrong, you have to redo that one, right? You have to redraw that whole picture. Okay, so make sure you ask if something isn't 100% clear, okay? All right, so I have this one all cut up to this line that I made, right? So all these are individual strips of paper, right? So if I turn this over, you can kind of get an idea of how these are going to then be able to weave into one another. And because I left this side all uncut, I don't have to keep track of a pile of strips of paper, right? I can just leave it just like this in my folder, and I don't have to worry about putting it back together every day, okay? So when I actually start weaving this, I can just tear off, the top piece and weave it, and then tear off the next piece and weave it, and tear off the next piece and weave it. And I'll show you that on Monday as we get going further into this, okay? So again, just to reiterate, we're leaving this strip uncut to make sure that all these pieces are stuck together so you're not having to keep track of them every day, okay?